That's not a legitimate government, that's a tyranny. That's a tyranny. And if that were happening in some widely recognized tyrannical country, East Germany, 1975, where everyone's under surveillance. By the way, I don't think East Germany, 1975, which was famously the most surveilled nation in the history of the world, I don't think they had seatbelt cameras. I don't. No, they didn't. That was too far even for Eric Honecker. He's like, that's old fascist for me, I can't do it. So these countries have become, including my own, have become surveillance states. And the point of that surveillance is not to keep you safe, it's to punish you for noticing what they're doing to your country, actually. That's not the behavior of a legitimate government. And if you think that's like a right-wing point, you've bought the lies. That's not a right-wing point. That's a simple observation about human rights. No privacy, no freedom. Not to mention the endless hectoring. No, it's not your country. I went to buy a pack of cigarettes today. I quit smoking 10 years ago, but I thought, you can kind of judge a country by its cigarettes. Couldn't find them. I went to this tobacco store. I said, this is a tobacco store. You don't have any cigarettes? Oh, there's a really nice Pakistani guy. He's like kind of shaking his head like, I know it's crazy. Opens up this cabinet. And I said, what the hell is on your cigarettes? Like, I don't even want to smoke them looking at that. I was like, you're making me not want to smoke, Mr. Tobacco Store guy. And he goes, I know. And every pack had like a rotted tongue on it or something. And again, I don't smoke cigarettes anymore. But I'm an adult man who pays his taxes. If I wanted to, I should be allowed to, right? You can do fentanyl here with the government's help. But you can't smoke a Marlboro without being lectured? Ugh. I did ask how much they cost. It was $60 for a deck of 20. And I said to the guy, I don't want to smoke. And I've never said that in my life. And I know everyone's like, well, smoking's bad. Yeah, of course smoking's bad. Lots of things are bad. But it's not really anyone's business, is it? I guess wearing a seatbelt's a good idea. I mean, I don't, but my kids say it's a good idea. But when they're forcing you to do things for your own good, over time you question, like, is this really for my own good, or are they just softening me up to obey? So when it really comes down to it, when they want to inject me with some creepy compound that hasn't been tested, that they'll be able to like shoot me with a rubber bullet if I decline. And I'll be so trained to be obedient that I'll kind of put up with it. And I won't do what I should do, which is stage, like, I don't want to say I'm going to get arrested. I shouldn't put up with that. Because that is not a free country, that's a tyranny. And you have absolutely no obligation under the most basic precepts of human rights and natural law to put up with that for 1 second. Period. They are the criminals. You are not the criminals. They don't care about your country, which belongs to you. So when they tell you it's not your country, that you're on someone else's land and you should feel bad about that, how is that a democracy? It's not a democracy. Because what's the basic idea of democracy? The citizens own the country. It's their country. It's not feudal land. They're not living here at the pleasure of the Lord. They can't just be shot with rubber bullets if they disagree with his decrees, because they own it. They're not renters, they're owners. That's the basic idea of democracy. However it's administered, whether it's a parliamentary system, whether it's direct democracy, as in Athens, whether it's a constitutional republic, representative democracy is the one that I live in, the idea never changes. The country belongs to its people, period. And if they're telling you at every landing of every commercial flight, in every government speech at the entrance to the Anglican church in downtown St. Paul's, that it's not your country, you cannot put up with that. Yeah, you cannot put up with that. Because you know what's going to happen is what's happening now, which is they will completely change your country, make your life much worse, make it absolutely impossible for your children to have the lives that you gave them. In other words, for your civilization to continue, because that's what that is. They will eliminate all of that, and you won't be able to say a word, because why are you complaining? It's not your country. And I can promise you that in 50 years, what you have will not exist. It will not exist. I'm sorry to say that out loud. The only reason I'm saying that, it's such a heavy thing to say, and it makes me, I feel a little rude saying it. But I just liked what I've seen so much. I've been so impressed by this country that I think to myself, really, the only way you could wreck a place like this is on purpose. Really, is on purpose. You don't need anything here. Hearing about your energy costs almost drove me, I almost put my fist through the wall. Someone saying, well, you can't do that. I was asking dumb questions, you have, the world's largest deposits of iron ore from which steel is made. I said, well, how many steel mills? Well, none. Why? Because energy's too expensive. I said, well, too bad you don't have any thermal coal here. Oh, wait, you have the world's largest deposits of thermal coal in the world? So why do you have such high energy costs? Well, because we sell our coal to China, which uses it to make renewables, which we then buy back. Okay. Whoever thought of that hates you. I'm just being honest. That's not an accounting error. That was not a mistake made in good faith. It's not like the accountants over at Parliament House or whatever they call it. They're looking at the books one day and be like, all those estimates we had about wind farms, it actually doesn't add up. That we sell our country's resources to a faraway country to make something that doesn't work and then pay extra for it. They knew that wasn't going to work when they did it, obviously, because that's insane. It's prima facie insane. The fact that you have high energy costs is reason enough to get rid of the people who are running your country. Because guess what? Everybody else knows, except the English-speaking countries, including mine, which are on one level the most impressive countries that have ever existed in human history, clearly. Certainly the kindest and most decent. Well, they gave us science, okay? They invented the airplane. They're the most impressive societies ever created, but they're also on some level the most naive or the dumbest. What everybody understands around the world is that there's a direct line between cheap energy and civilization. The cheaper energy you have, the fewer babies who die when they're born, period. The cheaper energy you have, the fewer women get worn out by life in their mid-30s. Go to countries with expensive energy in the developing world, and you will see the physical toll on people from having to live in a society where they can't afford energy. It wears people out. It wrecks their lives. We're happy because we have cheap energy in a lot of ways. And so if they're intentionally making it more expensive, just like if they're making it impossible for your kids to buy houses, or if they're shooting you with rubber bullets, at some point you have to connect the dots and say, these people aren't just neglecting me, they hate me. There's no other explanation for that. By the way, if this were happening in a family, so the model for all human organizations is the family, which is the building block of any civilization. Mom, dad, kids. I know they're trying to scramble that a little bit. Future generations will look back on this and be like, that was the craziest thing that ever happened. I have an idea. Why don't you castrate your children? Yeah. By the way, I thought the government, when I was a kid, I know I'm digressing, but it's just so much. This country is so close to the country I live in, it's really weird. It's like running into a relative you didn't know you had. You're like, wow, we look alike. How strange. Except you use the word wanka, and I don't know what that means. But in every other way, it's my new favorite word, by the way. I'm putting it in my suitcase for the trip home tomorrow. I'm going to unveil it at dinner parties. And I'm never going to ask anybody what it means because I know it's something bad. But if I know, then I won't be able to say it with a straight face. But I'm going to drop that, no exaggeration, the second I get home at dinner. Be like, you're all wankas. I learned that from my Australian friends. Excuse me. Anyway, but the building block of any civilization is, of course, the family, the nuclear family. Husband, wife, children, because that mirrors the natural order, the biological order, from which everything is derived. Now, Christians believe that's because God set it up that way. But also, scientists believe that because it's true, and there's no debating that it's true, okay? And so it would stand to reason that the deepest desire of the human heart, of course, is to reproduce. That's the whole point, right? That is the story of evolutionary biology, is to reproduce, to pass on your genes. And you get to a certain age and you've done that, and so the most pressing agenda on your list is to have grandchildren before you die. And so if they're telling you, no, what you really want, no, you got that wrong. In fact, 1 million years of human civilization has got it totally wrong. We just figured it out about 18 months ago. What you really want is to castrate your children, and then you'll have no hope of passing on your genes, and then you'll be happy. By the way, they don't buy this in real countries like China. They're like, yeah, okay, all right. It's like green energy. You think the Chinese believe in green energy? Right. They're buying your coal because they don't. Not for 1 second. They're like, oh, the whites want wind farms. Let's make some more. This is why everyone hates the Chinese. I do not hate the Chinese. They're doing what they think is in their best interest. I mean, I don't want to live in China, okay, at all. I detest the fact it's an atheist society. There's a lot about China I don't like. I hate the way they treat animals. But I hate that, actually. But one thing I admire about China is they act in China's interest. I'm sorry, I can't complain about that. That's what countries are supposed to do. I wish we had leaders like that. In my country, you spend all this time hating on China. It's like, let's take out the kind of murdering people for their organs part, or the eating dogs, which are deeply offensive to me. But let's keep the part where the government acts in the interest of the nation, which is the only legitimate use of a government's power. Like, I admire that. So if they can sell you wind turbines or solar panels because you're dumb enough to send them your coal to do it, kind of in the W column for China, no? Whose fault is that? It's yours and mine. I mean, my country does exactly the same thing. So you're not going to get me to rant about China. I want to learn from China. You know, maybe you guys can get your domestic manufacturing back and go sell windmills to somebody else who's dumb enough to buy them. You should do that. I've heard Belgium is looking to expand its green energy profile. And by the way, you could do that because you don't need anything. You have, if there's one like sincere criticism of Australians I would level after 2.5 weeks here, way too happy. It's such a happy country that people don't pause, A, to consider how bad it could be. They don't. And B, they don't really, with respect, in the US the same way, they don't really appreciate how great it is. They really don't. They don't. If you were designing a country, what would you want? Well, the first thing you would want is natural resources. Okay? That's the most important thing. The most important thing, and this may be news here in Melbourne, is not banking. It's not. Banking doesn't make an economy. Banking is, in some sense, possibly a necessary feature of advanced economies, but it's not integral to any economy. Loaning money and interest actually used to be considered disgusting. In fact, it was illegal. It still is illegal in some places. So the idea that we've made that like the apogee of human achievement, lending money, no, it's not. No, making things is the point of life. Making things is the point of life. And in order to make things, you need resources. And you have more resources than you could ever use. For the next 1,000 years, you're totally set. You need nothing. You've got more than enough land. There's nobody here. There's nobody here.